A millionaire paid a poor homeless woman to bear his child, but the baby shocked him all. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The flash of cameras painted the marble lobby in silver bursts. Dozens of reporters shouted at once, their voices colliding like crashing glass. Is it true? Did you really pay a homeless woman to carry your child? Mr. Callahan, what kind of father starts a family like this? Ethan Callahan didn't flinch. The 34-year-old millionaire adjusted his cufflinks as if the world's judgment were just background noise. His jawline was hard, his expression unreadable. For years, he had built empires on indifference, and now that mask stayed firmly in place. Behind him, the glass doors opened. She stepped in. Maya Turner, 26. Hair uncombed, an old coat draped over her thin frame. One hand on her swollen belly, the other clutching the strap of a thrift store bag like it was her shield. The room fell silent. One voice, sharp as a knife, sliced through the quiet. Did you sell your body for money? Maya froze. The heat of dozens of lenses pinned her like prey. Her lips parted, but no sound came. For a second, she looked ready to break. But then, slowly, she lifted her chin. Her voice trembled, yet her eyes burned. I didn't sell my child. I saved my brother's life. A gasp rippled through the room. Ethan turned his head toward her. The smallest flicker crossed his cold blue eyes' annoyance, or something he hadn't planned for. The story had begun weeks earlier. A private meeting room, high above the Manhattan skyline. Ethan sat across the table, tapping a pen against a contract thick enough to choke on. You'll live in the apartment I provide, he said evenly. You'll receive monthly payments until the child is born. After that, he let the silence finish the sentence. Maya's fingers shook as she signed, not because she didn't understand, but because she understood too well. The money meant her younger brother could stay in the hospital, hooked to the machines keeping him alive. She was out of options. When the last signature hit the paper, Ethan leaned back. Congratulations, Miss Turner. You're officially my surrogate. His tone was dry, almost cruel. But his words carried the weight of a deal that changed both of their lives. Weeks later, the contract followed her everywhere. At the clinic, wealthy wives whispered behind diamond-studded hands. She's nothing but a vessel. At least he's paying her. What else would she be worth? Maya kept her eyes down, clutching the sonogram photo like a secret. Her heart pounded, but her voice came out steady. Every life is worth more than money. The room went silent. Even the nurse froze, unsure how to respond. Ethan heard about the scene that evening. He poured himself a glass of bourbon in his penthouse, irritation tightening his chest. He had expected compliance, invisibility. Instead, she had spoken up, challenging the world with nothing but her voice. He told himself it didn't matter. She was just a contract. And yet, the next morning, at a shareholders' meeting, Ethan faced a critical deal on the verge of collapse. Lawyers argued, numbers blurred. The room pulsed with tension, and from the back, where she had no right to be, Maya whispered something to a passing assistant. One line, one observation. It hit the table like lightning. Suddenly, the lawyers stopped talking. Heads turned. Ethan froze. Her quiet remark had exposed a loophole the firm had missed for months. A single sentence, and she had saved him millions. For the first time in years, Ethan Callahan stared not at a contract, but at a woman who didn't fit into any line he could control. He was supposed to own this story. But somehow, she was writing it. And then came the night when everything changed. The city never slept, and neither did the whispers. By morning, every paper in Manhattan screamed the same headline: Millionaire buys a baby. Ethan tossed the newspaper onto his marble counter. The ink felt heavier than the paper itself. His phone buzzed. Board members. Investors. His mother. All with the same question. Why her? Maya didn't see the headlines. She was too busy standing in line at the pharmacy, her coat pulled tight, counting wrinkled bills. The cashier frowned. You're short by 20. Her cheeks burned. Before she could answer, a hand slid a card across the counter. Ethan. standing there in his tailored suit, looking completely out of place among flickering neon lights and dusty shelves. "I'll cover it," he said simply. Maya stiffened. "I don't need your charity." "Ugh. You signed a contract," Ethan replied, voice low. "Your health." "My health is mine," she cut in. "You bought the baby, not me." The words hung between them, sharp, true. For the first time, Ethan had no comeback. 2 days later, the storm grew. At a charity gala, crystal chandeliers sparkled while whispers sharpened like knives. Ethan walked in with Maya at his side, her simple dress borrowed, her posture stubborn. A woman in pearls leaned close to her friend, loud enough for Maya to hear. "She doesn't belong here. She belongs under a bridge." Maya smiled faintly, holding her glass tighter. "You're right," she said softly. "But bridges hold more weight than chandeliers." The women froze. Ethan caught the remark, a flicker of surprise softening his gaze. Later that night, Ethan's ex-fiancée appeared. Tall, polished, venom hidden in her smile. "So this is your solution, Ethan? A contract with her?" Maya forced herself to meet the woman's eyes. "At least I didn't need a diamond ring to stay relevant." The crowd around them gasped. Ethan's jaw clenched, torn between fury and something dangerously close to admiration. The ride home was silent. City lights streaked across the tinted windows like restless ghosts. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Why do you fight them?" Maya looked out the window. "Because if I don't, they win twice. First for what I am, then for what I gave up." Her voice cracked, but her spine stayed straight. Ethan said nothing. He just watched her reflection, realizing he'd built skyscrapers but never this kind of strength. The next morning, trouble arrived at his office. 2 shareholders demanded a private meeting. Their words were knives wrapped in silk. "Callahan, this arrangement is poison. End it. Pay her off and send her away." Ethan leaned back, expression unreadable. But before he could respond, the door opened. Maya. She shouldn't have been there. She held a folder tight against her chest. "I came to return the hospital receipts," she said softly. Then she noticed the men in the room, the smirks, the mocking glances. One of them scoffed. "So this is the surrogate? Tell me, dear, how much for silence?" The folder slipped from her hands, papers scattering like broken feathers across the floor. She knelt to gather them, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Ethan's voice cut through the room. "Get out." The shareholders froze. He had never spoken to them like that. "Now," Ethan said again, steel in every syllable. When the door slammed shut, Maya stared at him in shock. "Why did you—" "Because no one talks to you like that," Ethan said firmly. Silence stretched, heavy, unspoken. But later that night, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the skyline. This wasn't part of the contract. He was supposed to buy silence, not discover a voice that shook him. And the longer Maya stayed in his world, the more dangerous the truth became. Rain hammered the city that night, turning sidewalks into rivers. Maya walked alone, coat-soaked, clutching her belly as if the storm might rip it away. She hadn't planned to leave Ethan's apartment so suddenly, but the look on his face earlier that evening, cold, unreadable, had cut deeper than any insult. It had happened at a press conference. Reporters swarmed, their questions sharper than before. "Callahan, is it true you're keeping her in a penthouse? Is she nothing more than a womb on salary?" Ethan's silence stretched too long. His eyes locked on the cameras, not on her. Maya's chest tightened. For one awful second, she realized, he wasn't protecting her. He was protecting himself. When the press moved on, she slipped away unnoticed. Now, in the rain, she repeated the words she had whispered to herself 1,000 times. "You're strong enough. You don't need him. You never did." But when a car pulled up beside her, headlights flashing, she froze. Ethan stepped out, umbrella in hand. The rain barely touched him. "Maya, get in the car." "Number." Her voice cracked but held firm. "You let them tear me apart. You didn't say a word." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Because if I defended you, they would have torn harder. They would have destroyed you." She shook her head, tears mixing with the rain. "No, Ethan. They destroyed me because you stayed silent." The words landed like a knife. Ethan didn't move, didn't argue. Finally, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the storm. Days passed. Maya found refuge in a women's shelter on the edge of the city. The room smelled of detergent and stale bread, but at least it was warm. She worked folding clothes, saving every penny for the baby. At night, she scribbled notes in a worn notebook. Names, budgets, plans. But she couldn't scribble Ethan out of her mind. Meanwhile, Ethan drowned in board meetings, but nothing felt solid. Numbers blurred. Every deal looked meaningless. At night, he scrolled through his phone, stopping at a photo he'd secretly taken. Maya laughing faintly as she struggled to assemble a baby crib. For a man who owned skyscrapers, it was unbearable to admit he missed her. Then came the call. A hospital number. Maya Turner. Ethan dropped everything. He arrived breathless, hair disheveled, suit jacket half-buttoned. Nurses rushed past, the smell of antiseptic thick in the air. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Room 412. When he pushed the door open, he froze. Maya lay pale against the sheets, sweat beading on her forehead, clutching her belly. A doctor hovered nearby, voice urgent. "Complications. We may need an emergency C-section." Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. For the first time, money, power, reputation, none of it mattered. Only her. He rushed to her side, grabbing her hand. "Maya, I'm here." Her eyelids fluttered, surprise flickering through the pain. "You shouldn't be." "I should have been all along," he whispered. The doctor's voice cut through. "We're losing time. Decision needs to be made now." Ethan met Maya's eyes. They were tired, terrified, but blazing with a strength he couldn't ignore. "Do it," he told the doctor. "Save them both." The doors swung shut as they wheeled her into surgery. Ethan stood alone in the corridor, fists clenched, breath ragged. For once in his life, he wasn't the man with answers. He was just a man praying that the woman he thought he could buy wouldn't slip away before he had the chance to say the truth. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, cruel and steady. Ethan paced the corridor, every second stretching into a lifetime. His phone buzzed. Board members again. He ignored it. For once, the empire could wait. All that mattered was behind those double doors. 30 minutes later, a doctor stepped out, mask pulled down. "Mr. Callahan, the surgery was successful. Both are stable." Relief punched the air from Ethan's lungs. He gripped the wall, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You can see them soon," the doctor added. "But there's something you should know." Ethan's chest tightened. "What is it?" The doctor hesitated. "The child. There's a genetic marker. Something unusual." "Oh." Before Ethan could ask, the doctor slipped away, leaving only questions heavy as stone. Inside the room, Maya lay pale but awake, cradling the newborn against her chest. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, yet when she looked down, her face softened in a way Ethan had never seen. "Do you want to see him?" she whispered. Ethan stepped closer, the baby's tiny fists clenched, his skin warm and fragile. Ethan had closed billion-dollar deals, faced hostile takeovers without blinking. But now, he trembled. He reached out, brushing one finger along the child's hand. The baby gripped it, strong, fierce. Ethan's throat closed. He looked at Maya, words caught somewhere between apology and awe. "He's mine," he breathed. Maya nodded faintly. "Yours. And mine. Not the contracts. Ours." But then the doctor reappeared, holding a folder. "There's something else," he said carefully. "We ran routine tests. The child carries a rare genetic immunity, one we've only seen once before." He looked directly at Ethan. "In your late father." Ethan froze. The baby wasn't just an heir. He was proof of a lineage, a bloodline thought lost. And now, the boy carried something no money could buy, a key to the Callahan legacy. Outside, word spread faster than fire, nurses whispered. Reporters camped at the hospital doors. By evening, headlines screamed again. "Callahan airborne. Shocking genetic discovery." In the quiet room, Maya stirred. "They're going to use him, aren't they? Like they used me." Ethan knelt beside her, his hand firm on hers. "Not if I stand in the way." She gave a tired smile. "You can't buy protection for him. Not the way you tried with me." Ethan's voice dropped, steady for once. "Then I won't buy it. I'll fight for it." Hours later, Maya drifted into sleep, the baby curled against her. Ethan stood at the window, the skyline burning with city lights. For the first time in his life, he felt something stronger than power. Responsibility. But when the door opened again, and his mother walked in elegant, sharp-eyed, carrying the weight of the Callahan dynasty, his resolve wavered. Her gaze fell on the child. "So, this is the heir." Her voice was velvet and steel. She turned to Ethan. "You know what this means, don't you? That child belongs to the family, and the girl, she doesn't." Ethan's jaw clenched. Behind him, Maya stirred in her sleep, unaware. He stood frozen between the empire he had built and the fragile life now depending on him. For the first time, Ethan Callahan didn't know which choice would destroy him more. The hospital room felt colder the moment Eleanor Callahan entered. Her heels clicked against the tile like a judge's gavel. She didn't look at Maya, only at the child. "The heir," she murmured. "Perfect." Ethan's jaw tightened. "He's not a trophy, Mother." Eleanor's eyes flicked to Maya, sleeping softly in the bed. "She won't last here. Don't confuse necessity with permanence. This girl was paid, nothing more." Maya stirred, eyes half opening, her body weak, but her ears sharp. "I may have been paid," she whispered, voice raw. "But no one bought my son." Eleanor's gaze sharpened. "Your son? He carries our blood, our name. Without us, he is nothing." Maya clutched the baby tighter. Her voice broke, but her stare didn't. "He's everything, with or without your name." The silence in the room was suffocating. Later that day, Ethan faced the board of Callahan Holdings. Photographers lined the back wall. Flashes burst as an investor demanded, "Callahan, the public sees scandal. We see liability. This girl, this mother, must be cut out." Ethan stood tall, hands clasped behind his back. "She's not liability, she's family." Gasps, whispers, pens froze mid-note. But one voice cut through, bitter as smoke. "Family?" An older shareholder sneered. "She's a stray." "Admit it, Ethan, you lost control." Back in the hospital, Maya tried to rest, but the whispers of nurses echoed down the hall. "She's just the surrogate. She won't keep him, not against the Callahans." Her chest tightened. For the first time since signing that cursed contract, true fear gripped her. Would they take her son away? That evening, Ethan returned. His shirt rumpled, tie undone, eyes hollow from hours of battle. Maya's voice cracked as she asked, "Are they going to take him?" Ethan paused, then shook his head. "Not while I'm breathing." She looked at him, skeptical. "You didn't even defend me at the press conference. Why should I trust you now?" Ethan's hand tightened on the chair rail. "Because I've realized something. The empire, the legacy, it means nothing if I lose you both." Her eyes filled, but she turned away, afraid to believe. 2 days later, the Callahans hosted a private dinner. A mansion of crystal chandeliers and hushed voices. Eleanor Callahan sat at the head of the table, silverware gleaming. At her side, Ethan. Across, Maya uncomfortable in a borrowed dress, the baby's cry soft against her chest. The guests stared openly. Whispers ran like poison through the air. Eleanor raised her glass. "To the future of the Callahan legacy." Maya's lips tightened. Every nerve in her body screamed to stand, to run, to protect her child from this gilded cage. But before she could move, Eleanor's voice rang out. "The child will be raised here, properly, away from distractions." All eyes turned to Maya. The wineglass trembled in her hand. Her voice came low, sharp, shaking but unyielding. "You mean away from me." The table went silent. Ethan's pulse hammered. He looked at his mother, then at Maya. For the first time in his life, the choice wasn't numbers or power. It was blood or love. And everyone in that glittering room waited to see which side he would fall on. The air inside the dining hall was heavy, thick with judgment. Dozens of eyes burned into Ethan, waiting for him to speak. His mother's words still rang. "The child will be raised here, away from distractions." Ah! Maya's grip on the baby tightened. Her gaze locked on Ethan. "Say something. Choose us." But Ethan's jaw clenched. His silence stretched too long. Maya's heart cracked in the space of that silence. She rose slowly, the chair scraping against polished marble. "Then I guess this is where I leave," she whispered. The guests gasped. Eleanor Callahan's smile was coldly satisfied. Maya gathered the baby, every step toward the door, echoing like thunder. Ethan half rose, but his mother's hand pressed lightly against his arm. Let her go. She was never meant to stay. Outside, the night air slapped Maya's face, sharp and freeing. Tears blurred her vision as she tucked the baby close. I should have known. He'll never choose me over them. She walked away from the mansion's golden gates, her figure swallowed by the dark. Back inside, Ethan's chest ached, his fists clenched under the table. Every guest waited for his reaction. Every investor watched. He forced a smile, hollow and practiced, raising his glass. To the future, he muttered. But the taste of wine was ash in his mouth. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He walked through his penthouse, glass walls reflecting a man he didn't recognize. On his desk lay the contract, the one that had started everything. Cold, binding, transactional. He ripped it in half, then again, and again. But shredding paper didn't erase silence. Meanwhile, Maya found herself back at the women's shelter. The mattress was thin, the room crowded, but at least it was hers. She rocked the baby gently, whispering into the night. You've got me. That's enough. We don't need him. But when she looked down, her chest tightened. The baby's tiny eyes blew as Ethan stared back. And for a fleeting second, she hated how much she wanted Ethan to walk through that door. The next morning, headlines blared again. Callahan airborne, mother missing. Mystery surrogate vanishes after gala clash. Investors were restless. Journalists hounded the mansion gates. Ethan's mother smirked at the chaos. This is your chance, Ethan. Distance yourself now. Announce that the child is ours and hers. Forgotten. Ethan looked at her, eyes cold. You don't decide that. But his mother leaned closer, her words sharp as glass. If you defy me, you defy this family, and no empire survives without its foundation. Later, Ethan stood alone at the window of his office, staring at the skyline he once believed was indestructible. For years, he'd ruled with silence. With calculation, but silence had cost him the only two people who mattered. And for the first time, Ethan Callahan realized, to protect them, he would have to risk losing everything else. Morning sunlight spilled across the glass towers of Manhattan, but for Ethan Callahan, the day felt darker than night. Another headline hit the stands. Callahan dynasty in crisis. Where is the child's mother? The board demanded answers. His mother demanded obedience. But Ethan was done obeying. He walked into the press hall alone, cameras exploding like fireworks. For years, Ethan Callahan had been a master of silence, a man who never wasted words. Today, silence would destroy him. He stepped up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked straight into the sea of flashing lights. I need to tell you the truth, he began. The room stilled. This child was not bought. He was not a contract. He is my son. And Maya Turner, Ethan's voice caught, but he steadied it, is not just his mother. She is part of this family, whether anyone in this room likes it or not. Gasps, shouts, questions hurled like stones. But Ethan didn't flinch. For too long, I let others speak for me. For too long, I stayed silent while the woman carrying my child was humiliated. That silence ends now. Across town, Maya sat in the shelter, baby in her arms, the old television flickering in the corner. Her heart skipped as Ethan's face filled the screen. His words poured out not cold, not calculated, but raw. You want to talk about legacy? Ethan's voice thundered through the speakers. My son is my legacy. And the woman who risked everything to bring him into this world is the bravest person I've ever known. If this empire cannot respect her, then I no longer want the empire. Oh, Maya's lips parted, her chest tightened. He said my name. He finally said it. Back at the press hall, chaos erupted. Investors shouted, reporters surged forward. A journalist yelled, "Are you saying you'll give up Callahan Holdings for her?" Ethan's jaw tightened. I'm saying no fortune is worth losing the two people who taught me what it means to be human. The room exploded. His mother, watching from the front row, paled with fury. This is madness, she hissed afterward, cornering him. You've ruined everything. Do you even understand what you've done? Ethan met her eyes, unshaken. Yes, for the first time I do. That night, Maya sat in the shelter's narrow bed, still reeling. Part of her wanted to run into his arms. Part of her whispered not to trust him again. The baby stirred, tiny fists waving. She kissed his forehead, whispering, "He chose us, but is it too late?" Hours later, there was a knock at the shelter door. The volunteers whispered, eyes wide. Then they stepped aside. Ethan stood there. No suit, no polished mask, just a man. Rain clinging to his shoulders, eyes searching desperately. "Maya," he breathed. She froze, clutching the baby tighter. "You shouldn't be here." "I should have been here all along," he said softly. Her eyes shimmered, torn between anger and longing. "You made me believe I was disposable." And Ethan's voice cracked for the first time. "You're not. You never were. I was the disposable one without you." The silence stretched, fragile as glass. Finally, Maya whispered, "Then prove it." Ethan nodded, no hesitation. And in that moment, she saw not the millionaire who had bought her womb, but the man who might just fight for her heart. The shelter's fluorescent light buzzed above them, casting harsh shadows on peeling walls. Ethan stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes locked on hers. "Maya," he whispered, almost afraid to break the silence. Her arms tightened around the baby. Her voice trembled, but her gaze stayed steady. "Words are easy. You made speeches before. What I need is proof." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then tell me what proof looks like to you." Maya swallowed, throat dry. "Show me you'll stand with us when it costs you something. Not just when it's convenient. Not behind microphones. Not in front of cameras. Here, where it matters." For a moment, the room was nothing but the sound of the baby's soft breathing. Then Ethan stepped forward, lowering himself into a chair across from her. The millionaire who once barked orders from skyscrapers now sat awkwardly in a plastic chair in a women's shelter, his knees bent, his hands open. "Then let me start here," he said. "I'll stay tonight. With you. With him." Maya blinked, stunned. "You? In here?" "Yes." His voice was firm. "Because if this is where you sleep, then this is where I belong." That night, the shelter was restless. Mothers rocked infants, volunteers shuffled down the hall. But in the corner room, Ethan Callahan lay awake on a cot, staring at the cracked ceiling. Beside him, Maya slept lightly, the baby curled in her arms. He'd faced hostile takeovers, billion-dollar negotiations, lawsuits that could bury a man alive. None of them scared him like this fragile scene did, because here, he had everything to lose. By morning, the story had leaked. Paparazzi swarmed the shelter gates. Headlines exploded. "Millionaire CEO seen in homeless shelter with surrogate mother. Is Ethan Callahan abandoning his fortune?" Investors called nonstop. His mother's voice rang through voicemail after voicemail. "You're humiliating this family. Come home immediately." Ethan silenced his phone. For once, he didn't care. Instead, he walked with Maya down the cracked sidewalks outside the shelter. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashing. "Maya, are you really staying with him?" "Ethan, is this love or just damage control?" Maya's heart pounded. She turned, ready to bolt. But Ethan's hand found hers, firm and steady. He raised his voice, calm but cutting. "You want your headline? Here it is. She's not my surrogate. She's the woman I love. And if you want to see my son, you'll see him only with her by his side." The crowd erupted. Maya froze. The words were public now, carved into history. He hadn't just whispered them in secret, he had shouted them before the world. Her chest ached. This was what she had asked for. But could she trust it? That evening, Ethan brought Maya and the baby to his penthouse, not as a hidden guest, but walking proudly through the lobby, ignoring the stares of doormen and staff. Inside, the vast glass walls and marble floors felt colder than ever. Maya shifted uncomfortably, rocking the baby. "This isn't my world," she murmured. Ethan stepped closer. "Then I'll change the world until it fits you." But the war wasn't over. The next morning, Eleanor Callahan stormed into the penthouse. Her presence sucked the air from the room. "You've disgraced us all," she spat. "The company is collapsing. The board wants your resignation." "And all for this, girl." Maya stiffened, clutching the baby tighter. Ethan stood tall. "If they want my resignation, they'll have it, but she stays. They both stay." Eleanor's face went pale with fury. "You would destroy everything your father built? For her?" Ethan's voice cut like steel. "No, mother. I'm saving what he never understood. A family." That night, Maya sat quietly by the window, staring at the glittering skyline. "You really meant it," she whispered. Ethan sat beside her. "I've meant it from the moment I saw you fight back in that clinic. I was just too much of a coward to admit it. Maya's eyes filled, her voice breaking. And if tomorrow they take everything from you? The board, the money, the empire, what then? Ethan reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Then I'll have you. And him. And that's more than everything I've ever owned. For the first time, Maya allowed herself to lean against him, her cheek resting on his shoulder. But outside, the storm was only gathering. Because while Ethan was ready to fight for love, the Callahan Empire wasn't ready to let him go quietly. And soon, the battle between love and legacy would reach its breaking point. Morning arrived like a storm. By dawn, every financial paper, every gossip column carried the same headline: Callahan CEO risks empire for love. Stock dipped, investors panicked. And the board called an emergency meeting. Ethan stood before the glass tower that bore his name. The building had always been a monument to his power. Today, it felt like a battlefield. Beside him, Maya adjusted the baby's blanket. She didn't belong in a world of tailored suits and marble lobbies, and yet, she walked in beside him anyway. "Are you sure?" she whispered. Ethan glanced at her, his voice steady. "For the first time in my life, yes." The boardroom was already boiling when he entered. 12 men and women in suits, faces twisted in fury. Eleanor Callahan sat at the head of the table, spine rigid, gaze sharp enough to cut glass. "Ethan," she said coldly, "you've embarrassed this family. The company is in chaos. Investors demand stability. That means removing her." She pointed not at Maya by name, but like she was an inconvenience, an error. Maya shrank slightly, clutching the baby closer. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Say her name. Maya Turner. And she is not being removed." A board member slammed his fist on the table. "Do you understand what you're saying? Billions are at stake. Our legacy, our future." Ethan leaned on the table, his gaze burning into theirs. "Number. For once, I do understand. I've spent years building towers, chasing numbers, pretending it was all for legacy. But when this child was born, when I saw Maya fight for him with nothing but her voice, I realized legacy isn't in buildings or contracts. Legacy is in people." The room buzzed with outrage. His mother's lips curved in a thin smile. "Poetic. But poetry doesn't save empires." Maya's heart pounded. She wasn't supposed to be here, in this storm of sharks. She had promised herself she wouldn't speak, but her voice cut through before she could stop it. "You talk about legacy as if it belongs to you," she said, trembling. "But it doesn't. Legacy is what you leave behind when you're gone. And if you destroy a family to keep an empire, then your legacy is nothing but ashes." Silence crashed over the room. Even Ethan turned, stunned at her words. Then Eleanor rose slowly, eyes blazing. "You dare lecture me? You homeless girl, dragged from the streets, bought to carry a child you could never afford to raise." "Enough." Ethan's voice thundered, shaking the glass walls. His mother froze. The board fell silent. "You will not speak to her like that," Ethan said. His tone was final, unshakable. "She gave me a son. She gave me a family I didn't know I needed. And if that cost me every dollar in this room, then so be it." "Oh." He reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a leather folder, and tossed it onto the table. "My resignation. Effective immediately." Gasps. Chows erupted. "You can't. This is madness. You'll destroy us." Ethan straightened, calm in the storm. "Number, you'll destroy yourselves. Because an empire without humanity will eventually collapse, no matter how high the walls are built." Outside, the press swarmed. Cameras flashed as the doors opened. Maya clutched the baby, her heart hammering. "Ethan, what did you do?" "What I should have done the day I met you," he said softly. "I chose you." But the storm wasn't over. That evening, Eleanor confronted him in the penthouse. Her voice was sharp, but there was something else beneath it, fear. "You've thrown away everything. Do you even know what you've done?" Ethan met her eyes. "Yes, I've built something better. And one day, when you're gone, it won't be skyscrapers they remember you for, it'll be the damage you caused chasing them." For the first time, his mother had no words. Days passed. Without Ethan at the helm, Callahan Holdings scrambled. Stock dipped further. Rivals circled like vultures. But Ethan didn't care. For the first time, his days were measured not in contracts but in lullabies. Not in deadlines but in midnight feedings. He built cribs instead of towers. He learned how to hold his son without fear of breaking him. And slowly, Maya's walls began to lower. One night, as the city lights shimmered beyond the glass windows, Maya whispered, "You gave it all up. For me. For him. Do you regret it?" Ethan looked at her, then at their son, small and perfect in her arms. "Every day without you was the real regret," he said. Tears stung her eyes. She leaned into him, finally allowing herself to believe. But outside their fragile bubble, danger brewed. Anonymous leaks surfaced. Articles whispered of custody battles, inheritance wars. Eleanor was not done fighting. And though Ethan had walked away from the Empire hadn't walked away from him. The story wasn't finished. Because sometimes, to keep love alive, you don't just fight once. You fight again and again until the world has no choice but to listen. The quiet peace of Ethan's penthouse didn't last. By the end of the week, papers were served. Thick envelopes stamped with the Callahan seal. Custody petition, filed by Eleanor Callahan herself. Maya's hands shook as she read the words. She's trying to take him. She wants custody of our son." Ethan's jaw clenched, fury darkening his face. "She thinks money can buy courts the way it buys everything else. But she's wrong." Maya hugged the baby close, heart pounding. "I can't lose him, Ethan. He's all I have." Ethan touched her cheek, firm. "You won't lose him, not while I'm breathing." The courtroom was a cathedral of marble and wood, cold and imposing. Reporters filled the benches, the air buzzed with whispers. On one side sat Eleanor Callahan, flawless in designer black. Her lawyers a wall of polished armor. On the other, Ethan and Maya, no empire, no board, just determination and trembling hands. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Callahan, you claim custody of your son's child. On what grounds?" Eleanor's voice dripped with authority. "On the grounds that the child deserves stability, education, and a proper legacy. The mother is homeless, unfit. The father abandoned his responsibilities by resigning. This baby deserves better." Maya's chest burned. She wanted to scream, but Ethan's hand squeezed hers, grounding her. When it was his turn, Ethan rose. "I didn't abandon my responsibilities," he said clearly. "I embraced them. I chose my son. I chose his mother. And if stability means locking him in a mansion without love, then I'll take chaos with love every time." The courtroom buzzed. The judge's eyes narrowed, intrigued. But the battle raged on. Eleanor's lawyers paraded witnesses, nannies, doctors, even former investors, each one painting Maya as fragile, unstable, unworthy. Maya sat frozen, nails digging into her palms. Every word cut deeper, reopening scars she had fought to hide. Finally, the judge turned to her. "Miss Turner, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Her throat tightened. The room spun. Everyone stared, waiting, judging. Then she stood. Her voice was soft at first, but steady. "I may not have wealth. I may not have mansions. But I have fought for this child since the moment he was inside me. I lived in shelters, gave up food so he could grow strong. If love and sacrifice don't make me fit, then nothing ever will." Her words hung heavy in the air. Even the reporters fell silent. Eleanor's eyes flashed with fury. "Pretty speeches won't raise a child. He needs power. He needs protection. He needs the Callahan name." Ethan rose beside Maya. "Number, he needs his mother. And he needs me not as a CEO, not as a puppet, but as a father." The judge banged his gavel, silencing the uproar. "This case is not about money. It is about the best interest of the child." The courtroom braced for a ruling. But before the judge could speak, the doors burst open. A doctor strode in, papers in hand. His voice rang clear. "Your Honor, I have evidence. Genetic testing from the hospital." Gasps issued. He handed the file to the judge, who scanned quickly before looking up, stunned. "This child carries a rare immunity, one directly linked to Ethan Callahan's bloodline. Without him, the Callahan fortune, its medical trust, its future collapses. This boy is not just family. He is the only hope for its survival." The courtroom erupted. Eleanor's face drained of color. For the first time, the Iron Matriarch faltered. The judge's gavel slammed. "Order! Order in this court!" When silence returned, his voice was firm. "The evidence is clear. Custody remains with Ethan Callahan and Maya Turner. Case closed. Reporters swarmed as Ethan and Maya stepped outside. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust forward. How does it feel to win? Will you return to the company now that your son is confirmed as heir? Ethan wrapped an arm around Maya, pulling her close. It feels like freedom. And no, my son is not an heir to be paraded. He's a child, my child. And we'll raise him together, not as a legacy, but as a family. The crowd roared, headlines already forming. That night, in the quiet of the penthouse, Maya rocked the baby gently. Her eyes shimmered with tears. You really did it, she whispered. You fought for us. Ethan knelt beside her, voice raw. We fought for each other, and we won. Maya's lips curved into the faintest smile. For the first time, Hope no longer felt like a stranger. But outside their fragile bubble, the war wasn't over. Because though Eleanor had lost in court, her shadow still loomed. And in the dark halls of Callahan Holdings, whispers began. If Ethan would not return, someone else would take his place. And the battle for the empire and the family's future was only beginning. The victory in court should have felt like freedom. But freedom came with a price. By morning, the newspapers carried new headlines. Poor surrogate now, mother of Callahan heir. From homeless shelter to penthouse. Maya Turner's controversial rise. Some called her a gold digger. Others called her a miracle. But no one called her what she truly was, a woman who fought, bled, and sacrificed for her son. Maya kept the blinds closed in the penthouse. She rocked the baby, her heart heavy. They'll never see me for who I am, she whispered. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice firm. Then we'll make them see, not with press releases, with truth. The truth came faster than either expected. That evening, a charity event loomed. Invitations had been sent months ago, when Ethan was still CEO. Now, the press demanded to see him and her. Maya's stomach tightened. I can't. They'll eat me alive out there. Ethan cupped her face gently. They've already tried, and you're still here. You don't need to be perfect, Maya. You just need to be you. The gala shimmered with chandeliers and champagne. Diamonds glittered. Silk gowns rustled. And the moment Ethan and Maya walked in, the whispers began. That's her. Det. The surrogate turned heiress. She doesn't belong here. Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to turn back. But then, a familiar voice cut through the crowd. Mommy! Her younger brother healed. Smiling, rushed into her arms. The boy she had sacrificed everything for. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged him, his small frame grounding her in a way no ballroom ever could. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Miss Turner, how does it feel to go from homeless to penthouse? Do you love Ethan Callahan, or is this still about money? Maya swallowed hard. The words that once terrified her now rose like fire. I didn't fight for money. I didn't fight for marble floors or glass towers. I fought for my son, and for a man who finally learned that love is worth more than power. If you want to judge me for that, go ahead. The room went silent. Even the sharpest whispers died on lips. For the first time, Maya didn't shrink under their gaze. She stood taller, stronger. And Ethan, watching from a few steps away, realized the woman beside him was no longer just surviving, she was leading. But in the shadows of the gala, another storm brewed. A man in a crisp suit watched from the corner, his smirk dangerous. His name was Victor Hale, once Ethan's protege, now a rival circling the weakened Callahan empire. He raised a glass to Eleanor Callahan, who lingered near the edge of the crowd, her eyes cold. Looks like the empire needs new blood, Victor murmured. Eleanor's lips curved into a smile sharp enough to cut. And you'll help me deliver it. Back in the penthouse, Maya lay awake long after the gala. The baby slept peacefully. Ethan sat beside her, unbuttoning his cuffs, exhaustion etched into his features. You did it, he said softly. You silenced them, not with money, with truth. Maya gave a faint smile. For the first time, I believed it myself. Her hand brushed his, hesitant, then lingered. Their eyes met, the distance between them shrinking. For once, it felt like peace, but peace shattered the next morning. Ethan's phone buzzed with alerts. Headlines screamed across every screen. Victor Hale, named acting CEO of Callahan Holdings. Eleanor Callahan backs rival. Declares son unfit to lead. Ethan's fists clenched around the phone. She's replacing me. With him. Maya's chest tightened. What does that mean for us? Ethan's gaze darkened, his voice low. It means the war isn't over. It's only just begun. The morning air in Manhattan felt heavy, like the whole city knew a shift had happened. On every newsstand, Ethan Callahan's name was replaced by another. Victor Hale takes helm of Callahan Holdings. Eleanor Callahan declares her son's era over. Reporters shouted questions outside the penthouse. Investors demanded statements, but inside, silence ruled. Maya held the baby in her arms, rocking gently, her voice a whisper. They've taken everything from you. Ethan's jaw tightened. Not everything. Not you. Not him. That afternoon, Victor made his first move. At a press conference, cameras exploded as he stood on the same podium Ethan once commanded. Callahan Holdings, Victor declared smoothly, needs leadership that isn't distracted by personal scandals. Our legacy cannot rest in the hands of a man who abandoned his company for a woman plucked from the streets. Gasps, flashes, reporters scribbled frantically. And in the front row, Eleanor watched with icy satisfaction. Maya saw the broadcast on television. Each word landed like a blade. Plucked from the streets. Her chest ached. She could almost feel the whispers circling her again, dragging her back to that first day in the hospital lobby. Ethan, she whispered, they'll never stop. But Ethan turned off the screen, his eyes steady. Then let's give them something they can't ignore. 2 nights later, Ethan and Maya arrived at the Callahan Holdings shareholder gala. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and ambition. Victor Hale stood at the center, surrounded by investors eager for a new future. Whispers swirled the moment Maya entered, clutching the baby close, her gown simple but elegant. That's her, the girl who ruined Ethan Callahan. She doesn't belong here. Her stomach nodded, but she lifted her chin. Ethan's hand brushed hers, firm, grounding. We walk in together, he whispered. Victor's smirk widened when he saw them. Well, well, the fallen prince returns, and with his, distraction. Ethan's eyes burned. Careful, Victor. But Victor only raised his glass. Tell me, Maya, do you really believe he gave it all up for you, or are you just the excuse he needed to run? The room fell silent, every eye on her. Maya's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to shrink back. But then she remembered the shelter, the courtroom, the gala. She remembered surviving. Her voice rang clear. I don't need to believe it. I lived it. He walked away from an empire because love meant more. And if you can't understand that, then you'll never build anything worth keeping. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some investors frowned. Others whispered, reconsidering. Eleanor's jaw clenched in fury, but Victor only laughed softly, touching. But love doesn't pay dividends, and when this empire crumbles, so will your fairy tale. He raised his glass higher, smiling like a man already victorious. That night, back at the penthouse, Maya sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. Did I make it worse? She whispered. Ethan knelt beside her, his hand warm on hers. Number, you made them hear the truth. That's something money can't buy. Her eyes shimmered. But what if he's right? What if we lose everything? Ethan kissed her forehead softly. Then we'll lose together. And that makes us richer than they'll ever be. But Victor wasn't finished. The next morning, tabloids exploded with leaked documents. Maya Turner. Past arrest. Record revealed. Homeless mother once accused of theft. Maya froze, staring at the headlines. Tears blurred her vision. It wasn't theft. It was food. For my brother. Her voice cracked. They'll never let me escape it. Ethan's arms wrapped around her, strong, unyielding. Then let them try. Because I'll burn every paper, every headline, before I let them define you. Later that week, another board meeting was called. This time, the battle wasn't just corporate, it was personal. Victor strode in with Eleanor at his side, confidence radiating. Gentlemen, the evidence is clear. Ethan Callahan's choices have destroyed this family's reputation. Maya Turner is a liability. For the sake of our future, she must be cut away. The words echoed like a death sentence. Ethan rose, his voice sharp. Number, she is the future. Without her, without what she's given me, I am nothing. And if you can't see that, then you don't deserve this company. Maya's breath caught. The room erupted in shouts, but Ethan's voice thundered above them all. I will not sacrifice her for an empire. If this company demands that, then it deserves to die. Silence fell. Investors stared, stunned. Eleanor's face twisted in rage. Victor's smirk faltered. And for the first time, Maya saw it. Cracks in their power. That night, as the city slept, Ethan stood at the window, holding the baby against his chest. Maya approached quietly, wrapping her arms around him. "Do you regret it?" she whispered. He shook his head. "I've never been more certain of anything." But even as he spoke, a shadow loomed outside the glass towers. Because Victor Hale wasn't finished, and Eleanor Callahan wasn't defeated. They were only beginning their war. The storm broke at dawn. Papers screamed new headlines. Callahan scandal, Maya Turner's arrest record. From streets to penthouse, but can she be trusted with the air? Photos of Maya ragged, thinner, clutching her brother's hand outside a convenience store, splashed across every front page. She froze at the sight. "That night," her voice trembled, "I stole bread. Because my brother was starving. They caught me, but the store dropped the charges." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "And now they'll use it to take him from me." Ethan pulled her into his arms. His voice was steel. "They won't, not while I'm standing." But Victor had planned carefully. That afternoon, a petition was filed. A second custody challenge this time, backed not only by Eleanor, but by concerned citizens who claimed Maya was unfit. The courtroom loomed once again, colder than ever. Inside, Victor's lawyers paraded the story. "Miss Turner has a history of theft. She lived in shelters. She has no financial stability. How can she provide a suitable environment for the Callahan heir?" The judge's gaze turned to Maya. "Miss Turner, do you deny these allegations?" Her heart pounded. She wanted to vanish. But then, she remembered Ethan's words. "They only win if you stay silent." She stood, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I don't deny it. I stole one loaf of bread. Because my brother hadn't eaten in 2 days. Because the world turned its back on us. I would do it again if it meant saving him. And I will fight every day so my son will never know that kind of hunger." The courtroom hushed. Even the judge leaned forward, listening. Victor smirked. "Touching, but desperation is not dignity, and an empire cannot be built on pity." Ethan shot to his feet. An empire without compassion isn't worth saving. He turned, addressing the entire room. "You think her past makes her unworthy? That's exactly what makes her the best mother my son could ever have. Because she knows what it means to fight. She knows what it means to sacrifice. And she's stronger than anyone in this room." The silence after his words was deafening. But outside the courtroom, the war raged on. Protesters lined the streets. Some held signs reading, "Maya for Mother." Others shouted that she was a fraud. Cameras swarmed every step they took. Maya clutched the baby, her chest tight. "They'll never stop, Ethan." He cupped her face, his eyes burning. "Then we don't stop either. We fight louder." That night, Maya appeared on live television. For the first time, not as a scandal, but as a voice. The host leaned forward. "Miss Turner, the world wants to know. Do you believe you're worthy of raising the Callahan heir?" Maya's voice trembled, but she didn't flinch. "I'm not perfect. I've stumbled. I've starved. I've been homeless. But I have never stopped fighting for the people I love. And if that doesn't make me worthy, then I don't know what does." Millions watched. Some scoffed. But many listened. Back in the shadows, Victor seethed. Eleanor's face was tight with fury. "She's turning public opinion," Victor hissed. Eleanor's voice was venom. "Then bury her deeper. Find something worse. Everyone has a weakness." But in the penthouse, Ethan and Maya finally shared a moment of quiet. The baby slept soundly. Maya leaned against Ethan, exhaustion etched into her features. "You stood up for me today," she whispered. "Even when they dragged my worst moments into the light." Ethan kissed her temple gently. "Because your worst moments still shine brighter than their best lies." Her tears spilled, but this time they carried relief. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't carrying the fight alone. Yet peace never lasted. 2 days later, Ethan received an anonymous email. One line chilled his blood. "Tomorrow, the truth about your child will be revealed." Attached was a file. Genetic results altered, forged, claiming the baby wasn't his. Ethan's fists clenched. "They're trying to erase me from my own son." Maya's face went pale. If the world believes that, we lose everything. He held her tightly, his voice fierce. Then tomorrow, we fight back. Not with silence, with everything we have. The storm was coming, bigger than courts, bigger than boardrooms. And this time, it wasn't just their love or reputation on trial, it was the truth of their family itself. The email burned in Ethan's mind all night. Tomorrow, the truth about your child will be revealed. By dawn, it was everywhere. News anchors, tabloids, endless flashing headlines. DNA test. Baby not Ethan Callahan's. Oh, shocking revelation. The heir is a fraud? Photographs of Maya carrying the baby filled every screen, her face circled in red as if she were evidence in a crime. Maya's knees buckled when she saw the broadcast. No, this isn't true. Ethan, you know it isn't true. Ethan pulled her close, his jaw rigid. I know. But they don't care about truth. They care about power. The baby stirred in her arms, oblivious to the storm outside. Maya kissed his tiny forehead, whispering, "They won't take you from me. Not like this." By midday, protesters had gathered outside the penthouse. Some shouted in anger, "Fraud! Thief!" Others defended her. Let her be a mother. The city pulsed with chaos. Inside, Ethan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Lawyers, journalists, investors all demanding answers. Finally, he silenced the phone and looked at Maya. They've crossed the line. If we stay quiet, we lose everything. We have to fight back. Maya's eyes hardened. Then let me fight. That evening, they appeared together at a press conference. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions exploded. Mr. Callahan, do you deny the DNA results? Miss Turner, who is the real father? Maya stepped forward before Ethan could speak. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled at her sides. The real father is standing beside me, Ethan Callahan, and anyone who dares to question that will answer to me. Those files are lies, and I will prove it. Gasps. The room erupted. Ethan looked at her, stunned, but proud. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving the storm. She was commanding it. The next day, Maya began digging. She visited the hospital where the baby was born, demanding access to the original test records. At first, administrators resisted, but her persistence cracked walls. You can't hide the truth forever, she said fiercely, not when a child's life is at stake. Finally, a sympathetic nurse slipped her a folder late at night. Inside were the hospital's original results, clean, unaltered. They proved what Maya already knew. The baby was Ethan's son, but proof wasn't enough. They needed exposure. So Maya arranged an interview, live, national television. The host leaned forward, skeptical. Miss Turner, why should the public believe you when documents say otherwise? Maya opened the folder, holding up the original results. Because these are the truth. Because Victor Hale forged evidence to erase a father from his son. And because love is stronger than lies. Her voice cracked, but her gaze stayed firm. I was homeless. I was hungry. I was invisible. But I will not let my son be erased. Not now. Not ever. Millions watched. Some wept. Some cheered. And in that moment, the tide began to turn. Back in his office, Victor slammed his fist against the desk. She found it. She's turning them against me. Eleanor's voice was sharp. Then destroy her before she destroys you. But Victor's smirk returned slowly. Not yet. Let them celebrate. Tomorrow, I'll bury them both. That night, Maya returned to the penthouse exhausted but triumphant. You did it, Ethan whispered, pulling her into his arms. You showed them the truth. She closed her eyes against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. I didn't do it alone. You believed me when no one else would. For a moment, it felt like peace. But the peace shattered at midnight. A news alert flashed across every screen in the city. Anonymous source leaks footage. Maya Turner meeting in secret with unknown man during pregnancy. The clip showed a grainy video of Maya outside a shelter, speaking with a man in a hood. The footage was cut, twisted, designed to spark suspicion. Reporters pounced. Headlines screamed betrayal. Ethan stared at the screen, fury rising. This is Victor. He won't stop until he burns us to the ground. Maya's voice shook. They're making me out to be unfaithful, to destroy us. Ethan pulled her close, his voice raw. Then we fight harder. Because I swear to you, Maya, no lie will take you from me again. But outside their glass walls, the city churned with doubt. And somewhere in the shadows, Victor Hale raised a glass of champagne, his smile sharp as a blade. "The war has only begun," he murmured. The city woke to chaos. Screens flashed the grainy video again and again. Maya Turner, pregnant, meeting in secret with a man in a hooded sweatshirt. Headlines screamed. Was Maya unfaithful? The baby's father questioned again. Reporters camped outside the penthouse, shouting cruel questions. "Miss Turner, who is the man in the footage? Mr. Callahan, have you been lied to?" Inside, Maya sat trembling, the baby asleep in her arms. Tears streaked her cheeks. "They'll never stop, Ethan. No matter what I do, they'll twist it." Ethan knelt before her, gripping her hands. His voice was fierce. "Look at me. I don't care about their lies. I care about you. I know who you are. And I know who he is." Maya's breath caught. You know?" "Yes." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That man in the footage? It wasn't another lover. It was your brother." Her eyes widened. The memory hit like lightning. That night outside the shelter, the hooded sweatshirt, the whispered exchange. Her brother, sick and desperate. She'd given him the last of her money, begging him to hold on until she could help more. "They twisted it," she whispered, fury rising. "They turned my love for my brother into betrayal." Ethan's eyes burned. "Then we exposed them. For good. This time, there's no coming back for Victor." The showdown came in the form of a press hearing. Victor Hale, smug and confident, stood before cameras, presenting the doctored footage as evidence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "this is not about business anymore. This is about integrity. Ethan Callahan abandoned his family, his company, for a woman who deceived him. And the proof is right here." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Eleanor Callahan stood at his side, her smile sharp with triumph. But then another screen flickered on. The video played again, but this time, in full. Not the cut version Victor had released, but the original, unedited footage. The hooded man pulled back his hood. Not a stranger, not a secret lover. Her brother, thin, sick, shivering. And Maya's voice echoed clearly. "Please, take this money. Just hold on. I'll find a way to save you. I promise." The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs. Reporters shouted questions. Victor's face drained of color. Eleanor's smile faltered. Ethan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You lied to destroy a mother. You forged DNA, twisted videos, poisoned public trust, all to steal what was never yours." He turned to the cameras, to the entire world watching. "Maya Turner is not a fraud. She is the bravest woman I've ever known. She fought hunger, homelessness, humiliation, yet she never stopped fighting for her family. And I will spend the rest of my life proving worthy of her." Maya's tears flowed freely, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from release. Reporters turned, questions shifting. "Victor, did you doctor the footage? Eleanor, were you aware of this manipulation?" Victor stammered, his mask slipping. This is taken out of context." But the crowd wasn't listening. The tide had turned. That evening, the headlines told a different story. Victor Hale exposed. Forged evidence. Lies unraveled. Maya Turner redeemed. The truth behind the video. Ethan Callahan stands by his family. Victor was forced to resign in disgrace. Investigations followed. Eleanor's name, once untouchable, became a shadow of shame. And for the first time in months, silence fell on the Callahan penthouse. Maya sat by the window, the baby asleep in her arms. The city lights glowed like stars scattered across the earth. Ethan approached quietly, sitting beside her. His hand brushed hers, warm, grounding. "You saved us," he whispered. Maya shook her head. We saved each other." Her eyes lifted to his. For a long moment, the silence between them wasn't heavy, it was full. Full of everything they had survived. Weeks passed. The media storm faded. The protests ended. For once, Maya could walk the streets without whispers following her like knives. One afternoon, she returned to the shelter where she once lived. She donated cribs, blankets, formula, everything she once begged for. A woman approached her, trembling, a baby in her arms. "They call you the girl who married a millionaire. But to us, you're proof we can survive this too. Maya's chest tightened. She hugged the woman gently. I'm not proof. I'm just a mother who refused to give up. And so are you. Back at the penthouse, Ethan paced nervously. He had faced boardrooms, courts, and betrayals. But nothing made his hands shake like the small velvet box in his pocket. When Maya returned, tired but glowing, he dropped to one knee. Maya Turner, he said, voice trembling. I asked you to fight for me, and you did. I asked you to trust me, and you did. Now I'm asking you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? Her tears fell fast, her hand flying to her mouth. Yes, she whispered, her voice breaking. Yes, Ethan, 1,000 times yes. The wedding wasn't in a cathedral or a marble hall. It was small, under the open sky, with her brother by her side, and their baby gurgling in Ethan's arms. No diamonds, no paparazzi. Just vows, whispered with trembling voices and hearts that had been through fire. I promise, Ethan said, sliding the ring on her finger, to never be silent again. And I promise, Maya whispered back, to keep fighting for us, no matter what comes. The crowd was small, but the applause was thunder. And for the first time, Maya felt what she had chased her whole life home. Months later, Ethan watched as Maya played with their son in the park. Laughter spilled like sunlight, brighter than the towers he once thought defined him. He realized then, the empire he lost was nothing compared to the empire he held now, built not on steel and glass, but on love. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Maya lifted her son into her arms, smiling at Ethan. They had survived lies, betrayal, hunger, shame. They had faced the world and refused to break. And now, finally, they had everything that truly mattered. Not wealth, not power, but each other.